Russ.
I'll call the Wednesday, April 19th, 2023 meeting of the Architectural Review Committee to order. Erica, will you do a roll call for us, please?
Sure. Committee member Ostavar has notified us he will be absent. Chair Hunter,
Present?
Vice Chair Tregenza,
Here.
Committee member Carter,
Here.
Committee member Polly,
Here.
and Committee member Schmidt.
Here.
And I can go ahead and announce staff members present. We have Principal Planner Roberi, Senior Associate Planner Schmidt, Associate Planner Buggert, and myself, Recording Secretary Barrera.
All right, thank you, Erica. So I'll go ahead and move to open the consent agenda. Any comments or discussion from the committee members on the consent agenda, including the minutes from the previous meeting?
Can we also remind the public on how to participate?
Sure. Members of the public are encouraged to join our meetings via Zoom Gov, a secure service that connects you live with no lag time. This meeting is also streamed live on youtube.com/City of Monterey. It's also streamed on Comcast Channel 25. If you would like to provide public comment, please join the meeting using Zoom or by telephone, making sure to join in time to accommodate delays. To join the Zoom meeting from a computer or phone, use the link or phone numbers on the agenda posted at isearchmonterey.org. Since this meeting has started, you'll find the agenda under the Recent tab. To join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864, then enter the webinar ID. If prompted for a participant ID, press pound. Today's webinar ID is 161-914-9563. To provide public comment via Zoom, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen. To provide comments by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute when called upon. Public commenters will be announced using their last 3 phone number digits or the name typed into Zoom. Public commenters will be muted until it is their turn to speak. Please turn off TV or computer speakers or go to another room while connected, as background noise interferes with the broadcast. Public speakers will be called upon in order of hands raised. There is a 3-minute time limit for today's meeting. Please stay within that limit. We do have 2 attendees online, but there are no hands raised.
Okay, great. Thank you. If there are no comments, I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
All right, thank you. Okay, the motion is made to approve the consent agenda by Vice Chair Tregenza and seconded by Committee Member Carter. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, consent agenda motion passes. Okay. Next, I'll open the meeting for any public comments for items that are not on today's public appearance agenda. Any hands raised? Nope.
I still see no hand
All right,
raised.
all right. Then we'll close the public comments portion and move on to the public appearance items. The first one being to consider 495 Washington Street sign permit application SI-23-0022 for a 15.8 square foot replacement vehicle oriented freestanding sign. Does staff have a presentation?
Yes, thank you, Chair. My name is Chris Schmidt. I'm a senior associate planner for the city, and I've been working with the applicant on this project. I also did review their prior sign permit application, which I'll discuss in this presentation today. So we are looking at new signage at the site. There's existing signage that would remain, and then there'd be a new freestanding sign at the street corner. I'll show those details in a moment. But the staff recommendation is to adopt that the ARC adopts a resolution to approve the sign permit. The project site is a U.S. Bank commercial office building at the corner of Washington Street and Pearl Street in downtown Monterey. It is zoned PCD, which means it is in the planned community district, and the downtown specific plan is the land use document for that area. And so what we're looking at today is a 15.8 square foot replacement vehicle oriented freestanding sign at the street corner, as I mentioned. So there you see the location of that street sign. That's sign S1. And then you can see all the other signs that are labeled. Almost all of them were basically approved with the exception, I believe, S8, And I think it was S7. Anyway, I'll show them. Those were interior signs or signs that were removed from the proposal initially.
Is this Union Bank?
So it is, I think it's might be currently Union
Yeah.
Bank. They're changing to a US Bank.
Okay.
So you can see that Union Bank sign at the before picture in the top center. As you can see here, this is the proposed signage. It is really in the exact same dimensions and location, same. It would be on the same poles. The poles would be painted blue, of course, but very similar aesthetic. It would be a routed HDU, which is a high density kind of foam material that is fairly used. Fairly quite a bit in the kind of sign construction industry. This sign itself, as I mentioned, is 15.8 square feet. And then I'll look at the previously approved signs. So these signs would all go up together. It was just the one sign doesn't comply with some of our sign guidelines and specific plan requirements, which is why it requires ARC approval. But so you understand the full proposal. They wanted to get these approved and start building them, and then they would come to the ARC for the other signs. So here's a sign that would be at the Pearl Street frontage. I think it's about 6 square feet, 5.9 square feet. And then the same size sign on Washington Street. And then another sign, slightly different size and configuration at the parking lot. Generally, it's kind of set back, and it would still be visible from Pearl Street, but probably not as noticeable as the other signs. In addition, there were parking lot signs. I've included them just for showing the entire proposal. These are actually exempt from the sign ordinance because they're small enough. So there's no issue with these signs as well. So I do want to go through the sign guideline inconsistencies. Sign guidelines typically require that freestanding signs, vehicle-oriented freestanding signs be on lots that are 100 feet wide with buildings that are set back 20 feet or more. In this case, this lot is kind of irregularly shaped. Going back to the lot shape on the right here. So it, from the Washington Street frontage, it's I think almost 100 feet. But just because it's irregularly shaped, we just said it's not exactly what the guideline requires. And obviously this building is not set back 20 feet. And then freestanding signs should also have a solid base. Visible poles are discouraged. And then there are a number of downtown specific plan standards that apply, as well as the objectives. So the sign should be, the sign design and scale is integrated into the design fabric of downtown Monterey. The visual prominence of the sign is appropriate to allow for the views, buildings, trees, or streetscape, and streetscape. The design of the sign continues the unique design character of downtown Monterey and its character areas. Internally illuminated signs are prohibited. The sign is not internally illuminated. And the following slide does talk about the other inconsistencies, but generally G7.1 is one of them. Projecting signs and wall signs are preferred. The project does include wall signs. This sign is not a wall sign. It's very similar. It's located at the ground, very close to the building, but it's not attached to the wall. G7.2 has to do with awning signs. Doesn't apply here. Freestanding signs are entirely inappropriate due to the pedestrian nature of the area and desire for back of sidewalk development. And then the last one, it has to do with A-frame signs. None is proposed here. So I kind of just went through each of those. But so there are 3 findings for approval for sign permits. The first is that it achieves the purposes and objectives of the sign ordinance. Staff was able to make all 3 findings. Finding with the first one was that the sign isn't, as with all of the signs together, is an effective means of identification and communication of the location of that business. The signage does promote equality, equity among sign owners in the area, and it must also be consistent with sign guidelines or better achieve the purposes and objectives. In this case, staff found it did achieve those purposes and objectives, which are kind of those first 2 bullet points. The signs have to be compatible with the area and achieve those purposes and objectives. This sign specifically, the reason that the staff made this finding is because this is a relatively small freestanding sign. The guidelines, the specific plan really does recommend wall signs, and this is just so close to a wall sign, even though it's located at the ground. It very well could be attached to the wall, which is only about a foot away. And then the specific plan also does recommend against freestanding signs because it doesn't want back of sidewalk development. In this case, the building is really almost pushed right up to the back of sidewalk with a small amount of room for a sign like this. So it seemed like it would still be compatible. And then the last finding is consistency with the general plan. This is a commercial use and consistency with the specific plan. The ARC can deviate from guidelines, as I mentioned in a previous presentation for a different project. Standards are required, but the ARC can deviate from guidelines. Staff is supportive of this sign here today, considering the previous sign didn't really appear offensive and the new one is the same location and orientation. So again, staff recommends approval. I'm available for questions, and I believe the applicant is online as well. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Chris. So quick question. This is not an internally illuminated sign, is it?
Correct, it is not.
It is not. Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions? Any comments?
Chris, could we just go back to the sign in question, the big 15.8 square foot sign? Okay, so
So
there, there is a sign there.
Right.
And you're just replacing it,
right.
but the previous one didn't have a permit? Or did?
It did. So anytime we replace signs, the process starts new again.
Got it.
Anytime you take one down and put a new one up.
Got it. And then is there any, I don't see any gooseneck lighting or any sort of lighting.
No.
Okay.
So no lighting.
All right. So it's the same footprint. New logo.
Yeah, and I'll just note the note does say non-illuminated on the text here.
Any other questions? Is the applicant is online? Do they want to make a statement?
I believe the applicant is online, however, their hand isn't raised.
Okay. All right, if doesn't want to make a comment, I'll open this up for any public comment. Are there any hands raised online for comment on this?
There are no hands raised online.
Go ahead and close that. Any discussion for the committee on the sign?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
All right, a motion has been put forward by committee member Carter to approve sign permit application SI 23-002. And seconded by committee member Pauly. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next, we'll move on to consider 500 through 528 Fulham Street Architecture Review Application ARP-23-0033 for preliminary and final architecture review of exterior alterations, including new landscaping, fencing, for this here. Does the staff have a report?
Yes. Thanks again, Chair. Still Chris Schmidt, Senior Associate Planner with the city. Yes, we're looking at new landscaping and fencing. So the staff recommendation is to adopt a resolution approving architectural review for this project. This project is located in the lower New Monterey Foam Street Lighthouse District area at the corner of Foam and McClellan. Had previously contained the Hodges rental use where they rented all sorts of machinery and equipment. In last year, they did receive a use permit approval. The applicant received a use permit approval to use the space as vehicle and vessel storage for the Monterey Bay Aquarium. So they'd be storing mostly boats and a few cars there. So what they're proposing today is new fencing for security fencing, as well as new landscaping to screen some of that. They also have proposed that, which is required by the city code, is some sound walls that are adjacent to the residential properties, which is a requirement in our zoning ordinance. I'll show those details on the following slide. Yeah, so just to describe the use a little bit more, vehicle, vessel, boat storage, basically, for the aquarium, new walls, new driveway aprons, new trees, removal of accessory structures, which I'll identify on the site plan. This is a use that would be used fairly infrequently when they need to use their research vessels. But when they are there, they'll be there early in the morning, 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. during the week. They would have employees on site, and in this case, this is intended to be a secured use, which is, you'll see they propose some 7-foot tall fencing here. So I mentioned some accessory structures that would be removed. That's at this location here. Otherwise, the buildings on site would remain, and then you can see the locations of where they would have some of those vehicles and vessels. I'll also note these are existing palms here that I believe are still proposed to remain, but they are proposing a number of new trees as well as new landscaping. So this is the new fencing. It would be like a corrugated panel fencing in kind of an aquarium gray color with black framing, just like steel post framing that would surround it. And there's a closer look on the following slide. There's no proposed use at the building, but they do expect to use it in the future. So there's a gate. This is the top elevation is that Home Street elevation. There's a gate you can see here that can be used for vehicle access. And then on the McClellan elevation, they've got a gate here as well. And I believe these are sliding, electric sliding gates that they would have to maintain as well. You can see at the corner, they kind of make a like a 90, not a 90, but it's almost like a curved corner here. So the paneling would go around the corner to maintain some of those sight lines and allow for additional landscaping. And then you can also see the gate itself does jog in a bit for those new trees, and they've selected these trees that don't grow too tall because there are power lines above, and they'll have to maintain those. So here's that fence detail. So if you could imagine that this kind of aquarium gray, kind of gray color, industrial grayish color with the black posts and black framing around it. It's a vertical corrugated paneling. And then on the adjacent lots, so this is a corner lot, the adjacent lots are residential, or they're zoned commercial or mixed use, but they currently contain single family homes. They're proposing this split face CMU wall in the color that I show above. And for those that don't know what split face is, this is kind of what it looks like, and it would be in this color on the top image there. So here's their landscape plan. It's all drought tolerant plantings. They're not specifically ones that are called out or suggested by the Lighthouse Pacific Plan, but the plan is not strict on that front. It does recommend drought tolerant plant species. Staff has no issue with what they're proposing here today. I think it would be a nice plan. And then I didn't receive the public comment for this application. It was actually back last year when the project was reviewed for the use permit, but it is still relevant and more of in the ARC's purview than really for the use permit. And so we had a member of one of our neighborhood association who suggested that the site should be, the fencing should include public art. And I've copied some of the Lighthouse specific plan policies. They don't really require any sort of public art for this type of use. There's some suggestions for open space guideline 2.8, encourage new development to encourage public artwork and landscaping elements. In the parking section, there's some other requirements. Parking lots shall be screened from the public right of way, which they've done here with both the fencing and landscaping. Parking garages shall have active storefronts, ground floor use pedestrian and with a ground floor uses or pedestrian friendly edge, public art or landscaping. So they have landscaping here. Incorporate one or more of the following into Lighthouse Avenue elevation, so not foam, and of a parking structure. So retail / commercial wrap, murals or public art, decorative architectural features, display cases, landscaping, public amenities, street furnishings. So the staff didn't really push too hard on this when we talked about it, and we did discuss the idea of it. You know, the aquarium isn't going to be using this as like it's not open to the public, and they're not really trying to advertise that it's their boats. So, you know, I understand that they when we suggested, can you do some sort of like fish detail or some sort of thing, it was like, well, we don't really want to call a lot of attention to us. I just wanted to bring that up. Again, the staff's not necessarily recommending it today, but it's definitely a topic of discussion. The ARC can consider requiring something, but that's that background information. So going through the findings, the first is that the proposed siding form, mass, and architectural style are appropriate. The buildings are unchanged with the exception of some of those accessory structures, the sheds that are being removed. The fencing and wall styles are appropriate for security and noise protection. As I mentioned, the fence is 7 feet, the wall itself is 6 feet. The specific plan doesn't have any requirement for fencing. I know that our staff is working on future amendments where the requirement is 6 feet, but applicants can come to the ARC for greater than 6 feet, but it's not required today. The second finding is that views, privacy, and living environment are not unreasonably impaired. Staff found no issues with views, privacy, or the living environment. These fencing are, while tall from the street, I don't think they're going to impact any sort of views from neighboring properties. The properties across the street are at a much higher elevation. There are no houses across the street. They're generally commercial. And they all have second stories that I think they probably have views from where they don't at the first floor. Likewise, the one of the neighbors of this property did come to the use permit hearing, and I think he was just interested in seeing what they were doing. He had no privacy issues, didn't have any worries about the use. He just wanted to see if the aquarium would donate their fencing because he could use it for his business. So there were no issues with neighbors at the time. And so no issues with the living environment. The third finding is that the project is consistent with city plans and design guidelines. The general plan land use designation is commercial, and the general plan specifically calls out that the city support local institutions such as the Monterey Bay Aquarium. I will say that the specific plan guideline G243 recommends low fencing at parking lots, which, you know, would really be inappropriate for security in this case. And the project does include a pretty good amount of landscaping to soften the appearance of the exterior there. So staff was able to make that finding. And then the fourth finding is that exterior finished colors, materials, landscaping, fencing, lighting, and all other exterior features are appropriate. The materials are compatible with the commercial district, and the project does include a variety of drought tolerant species. Staff made that finding. So staff's recommendation is to approve. I'm available for questions, and the applicant, Mr. Doug Roberts, the architect for the project, is here as well. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you, Chris. One quick question for the cameras and the lighting and stuff for this. Is the lighting going to be down facing, or is there lighting detailed in?
Yeah, so at this point, there's existing lighting there that is facing down. I did talk to Doug. They're working through some new lighting that would be attached to the building, and then I think that in the parking lot, it would all be down facing. You know, we have a requirement that they provide photometrics, and so we'll have to reapply. It would be something that the staff approves and the staff reviews. And the specific plan requires down lighting that is not visible really from off site.
Thank you.
Chris,
Is
could
what-
you show the type of landscaping that's proposed again?
Yeah.
I'm assuming these are gonna be when established at varying heights, not just all low to the ground.
Yeah, so, and I know it's kind of a hard graphic to see. I could actually pull up the staff report, which does maybe is a little bit easier to read in the attachment. But yeah, so there's a mix of trees, ground cover, and kind of shrubs.
It's packet page 41.
Thank you. This a bit. Oh, I was gonna go to the actual attachment, because I think it's even still difficult to read in the staff report.
Oh. Yeah, there.
So if you can see this chart, which it's, I understand it's probably still pretty small. The columns on the right-hand side show tree, vine, ground cover, succulent, grass, herbaceous, perennial, evergreen. So they have a number of different ones, varying sun requirements, and so yeah, I mean they'll be, looking at the actual detail for each one. There's all sorts of different sized plants and shrubs, etc.
Okay, thank you.
If you go further down, Chris.
Yeah.
It shows kind of like the,
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Every time I blew it up on my laptop, it just blurred out.
Yeah, I know. I think our agenda management software kind of reduces the resolution just to make sure the reports aren't too huge, but
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee?
Are they gonna paint the building, the existing building?
it's not part of the proposal today. I would refer to the applicant on that question.
Okay, at this point, invite the applicant if they want to make a presentation or comments.
Very good. Thank you very much. I'm Doug Roberts from JHW Architects. I just wanted to make a couple of comments to add to Chris's presentation. There is a pedestrian gate in the fencing up near the building on the Foam Street side that provides disabled access from the sidewalk into the area, where of the parking lot. The corner that he was mentioning, how the fence is rounded there for sight lines, that was worked out with Public Works and things. So they've bought into that. As far as painting the building, there isn't a plan to do that at the moment. The aquarium may choose to do that just as a maintenance thing to help hide it or what, change the color up a little bit. But right now they're still trying to figure out how they're going to use the building. The big thing that they needed was the place to be able to put their boats to get them out of the way of some other projects they have coming down the line where the boats are now. So the plan, where if maybe you could put the plan up. Let's see, plan view. Yeah. The plan shows different boat shapes and things. A couple of those maybe just trailers that, and some of them are boats. There's a water truck that they use that takes stuff to, that moves water around that they have from, from the aquarium to be able to take up to their marina facility and so on, that would be parked here. And then their tow vehicles are the main trucks and stuff that would be parked here also. The 5 empty spaces that are shown are just to show that we have adequate parking to serve the building as in its current use, separate from the plan for the other vehicles that would be stored there. I want to make one comment about the 6-foot high wall on the back. As long as the ARC has the ability to say so, we might like to make that 7 feet and have the leeway to be able to do that. I know in the application we said it was 6, in the building department submittal that we've been working on right now, that we've shown it as 7. 7 feet is actually a height that is the limit for what you can do without a permit, but then, you know, this is a CMU wall and it's pretty structural and stuff, so we've submitted it for building permit anyway, as is the structure in front. One other thing on the, like, can we go to the fence detail? Yeah, there. The fence is designed with like 4x4 steel posts. And then a rectangular frame that fits in between them. And then the frame has like 1x2 steel pickets at spaced, you know, at 4 inches on center and then 8. So they're like paired 4-inch on center steel pickets. And then the corrugated metal is applied to the back side of that. The corrugated metal is basically to provide a solid material that you can't see through in order to provide security to the site. And like Chris mentioned, the aquarium's not anxious to have the public really be broadly aware that, you know, the aquarium has their stuff there and things, you know. But anyway, thanks. You did a good job. Any questions for me on here?
All right, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? No?
So you want the fence to be 7 feet instead of 6 feet?
Well, the front fence is designed as 7, the back CMU wall that is against the residential properties. We might like to make it as up to 7. I have to probably talk with the aquarium if we could do either. They may say, well, let's do the less expensive at 6, but the 7 is going to provide a better protection for the neighbors and stuff too,
And the equipment?
and the equipment and stuff, right? But there isn't, from what we can tell in topography, there isn't any grade difference really between the properties that are adjacent there. So there's not any retaining. It's just, you know, consistent height right through.
Does Ambari use these vessels too, or just the aquarium?
Good question. I don't know.
Okay.
There's the one bigger boat is the Lucille. It's probably their biggest thing that they tow, and then the it's an aluminum, you know, big aluminum boat. The others are mostly those kind of rubber edged. I forget what the brand name is on those things.
Rigid inflatable
Yeah,
They're like
rigid-
inflatable on
Yeah,
that?
rigid inflatables.
rib.
And then they, you know, I think they probably take multiples of those out when they do certain kinds of activities out in the bay.
All right, any other questions? Nope. Go ahead.
Your mic's not on. Your mic's not on.
Sorry.
Repeat your question.
So if we approve a 7-foot fence as requested, but he goes back and speaks to the aquarium and they decide to go with a 6-foot fence, how does that affect the process or the application at all? Or the approval?
I mean, typically we would require that they provide an amendment. The ARC, I guess, could add a condition that they're allowed to do a smaller fence if they want to.
Okay, thank
Could
you.
we just say 6 to 7 feet, just make it a range? Because it's gonna have a couple of steps in it and stuff anyway, so, yeah.
Just say 7 with the approval to go lower. All right. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Erica, would you remind the public how, if they want to comment, how they can do so via Zoom?
Sure. Once again, to join the meeting from a computer or phone, use the link or phone numbers on the agenda posted at isearchmonterey.org. To join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864, then enter the webinar ID. Today's webinar ID is 161-914-9563. To provide public comment via Zoom, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen. To provide comments by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute when called upon. Public commenters will be announced using their last 3 phone number digits or the name they've typed into Zoom. I currently see no hands raised online.
Thank you. I'll close public comment on this one and open up for discussion for the committee.
Make a motion.
Please.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve architectural review application ARP 23-0033 for preliminary and final architectural review. with the condition that the rear fence may be raised to 7 feet and does not require another trip to the ARC to go any lower.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. The motion has been put forward by committee member Polly to approve ARP -23-0033 for preliminary and final architectural review for 500 to 528 Home Street with the addition that the rear fence or wall, it could go to 7 feet. And that motion has been seconded by committee member Carter. So all in favor?
I,
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
All right. Next, we'll move on to consider 6 Lower Ragsdale Drive, the sign permit application SI-23-0043 for one internally illuminated vehicle-oriented freestanding sign. Does staff have a presentation? Matthew?
Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Buggert. I'm going to pull up the presentation. My name is Matthew Buggert, and I'm an associate planner with the City of Monterey's Planning Division. And today we're here to talk about 6 Lower Ragsdale Drive, sign permit application SI 23-0043 for a vehicle-oriented sign. The recommendation from staff is that the ARC adopt a resolution to approve the sign permit application with conditions of approval. The site is in the southeastern corner of the city, just southeast of the airport. The general plan designation is industrial, and the zoning is IR 150 D2 ES, primarily industrial. The proposal is for a single monument sign near the driveway entrance from Lower Ragsdale Drive to the Ohana Montage Health Facility that is finishing construction, mid-construction. And there will be additional interior wayfinding signs for the parking lot area, but those signs are exempt from the city's side guidelines. And the applicable condition on this project came from Public Works for ensuring visibility when exiting, making sure that the monument sign is far enough away so that exiting vehicles can see going onto or off of Lower Ragsdale Drive. The size of the sign is 88 square feet. The sign would be internally illuminated, and that would include both the white text and the multicolored logo. An example of the sign at night is included here. The sign would have push-through lettering and logo illumination with vinyl adhered to the front of the sign. And it matches some similar Montage Health signage at their other facilities as well. Findings required for approval from ARC is that the proposal achieves the purposes and objectives of the sign ordinance. The intent of the sign is to find the health facility, and an additional finding is that the sign must be consistent with the guidelines, or ARC determines that the proposal would better achieve the purpose and objectives. There's an asterisk at the end of this one because I'll be talking a little bit more about it on the next slide. And number 3, that the proposal is consistent with the general plan. Its wayfinding signage identifies the business and was found consistent. As part of the sign guidelines, there are 2 primary features that are inconsistent. One is that the size of the sign would be 88 square feet. For a monument sign, it's typically limited to 50 square feet. The 88 square feet exceeds the maximum of 50 square feet. The size of the building, just the frontage of the building is 320-ish feet long. It was felt that the size of the monument sign would be relatively reasonable for the size of the associated building. However, it is larger than the maximum suggested or recommended. Additionally, the sign would have internal illumination, cool internal illumination, which is not in compliance. The sign guidelines typically request warm white illumination, and the illumination that's being used, the reasons given for it were to both facilitate emergency vehicle wayfinding and also that the lighting matches the existing health facility branding that they have at their other facilities already. And with that, staff's recommendation is to adopt the resolution to approve the sign permit amendment with the condition of approval.
All right, thank you.
The applicant is also online as well for any questions you may have.
Okay, great. Thank you, Matthew. Any questions for Matthew on the project? No? Does the applicant want to make any comments while we're here if they're online?
I see the applicant has their hand raised. I'll go ahead and allow
Okay.
John Mata to speak.
Hey, good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon.
John with Monterey Signs. I just wanted to say thank you guys for taking the time on this sign. And yeah, it's pretty consistent with the signs at the Carol Hatton Breast Cancer Center, as well as the Montage Health at 2 Lower Ragsdale. Or 2 Upper Ragsdale, I'm sorry. And I agree with the condition to bring the sign in a little bit so cars can exit. So whatever that measurement is, we're fine with that. And yeah, thank Matthew. You did a great presentation. I appreciate it, Matthew. And let me know if you guys have any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Mata? No, no questions? All right, thank you. Is there any member of the public online that wants to comment on this project?
There are no hands raised.
All right, okay. The next I'll open up for discussion for the committee.
Hey, Matthew, can we put the slide up again with the little stick figure standing next to it? Please.
It's not turning on. Oh, there we go.
Now, at the breast center and the other buildings out there what are the square feet? Is this consistent with that? Because I mean, this is a lot larger than where, the guidelines state. And I'm just wondering, why does it need to be so big? That's a big sign.
I am not sure what the size is at the other facility.
Quite large.
They are
They're really big.
quite large. I'm not sure if they also reach the 88 square feet versus the 50 square feet. I'm not sure.
Maybe, I think Monterey Signs did those. They might know.
I think that they
Yeah.
were also bigger than 50 square feet.
It's just, there's a lot of dead space there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, why does it, I don't know, I understand why it needs to be so long, like it's 192 inches long. It's long.
I mean, it particularly looks funky on the staff report. There's.
Matthew, is this facility 24/7? Because I know it mentioned it's the size partially and the illumination for emergency vehicle. I know
It
the
is.
purpose of the facility, and I would imagine that it would be 24/7 considering it's a children's psychiatric facility or mental health facility. So if there is some kind of emergency in the middle of the night.
I did not ask that specific question. However, the reason given being nighttime waytime or wayfinding during nighttime, at least some portion of their operations was needed to occur after.
Yes, they would have some inpatient care, so children would be sleeping there.
I would imagine that there's a possibility of children arriving in the middle of the night should an emergency occur. I have no problem with the size of the sign myself. so.
Any other comments?
So
Well,
it's a big sign, but it's
I
a
don't know
big,
why
it's a big building.
Why it's twice as long as it needs to be for what it's saying. Other than just to give us a balance. But yeah, no, it's a big building and I'd like to see it in conjunction with the building and like a drawing of it in scale with the building in the background, but I don't think we have access to that yet.
Well, the Ohana came through ARC a year ago, 18 months ago.
The date that I saw was 2020 on the staff report or on the PowerPoint. It could have been 2021, but
Quite
a
large.
while ago.
It's huge.
Yeah,
It's
but
a
was
really-
the sign wasn't part of that.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That we didn't vote on it. They just were sharing it with us to let us in on what was going on. If I remember correctly. I'm
You-
just curious as to, I'd like to see it with the building in the background to go, "Oh, okay, that looks right. Other than it's just like there's this guy and this huge sign that's twice as long as it needs to be.
The other ones out there are really big too, though. They're
Well, we're not talking
Um,
about that. I mean, I'm talking about this sign. And I don't know if the other ones are bigger. We don't seem to have an idea of what the square footage is, if it's beyond 50 feet other than we think it is. So I'm just curious.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So they're the exact same size as the other ones. That's why we're trying to keep it consistent with the other monuments out there.
Exact same size.
The
All right.
one for Carroll Hatton's 88 square feet and the same one for two upper Ragsdale.
Okay.
For Montage Health is 88 square feet as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we're just trying to keep it consistent.
That answers my question.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
I move to approve sign permit application SI 230043 for one internally illuminated vehicle oriented freestanding sign.
second.
Okay, motion has been put forward by committee member Schmidt to approve the sign permit application SI 23 for one internally illuminated vehicle oriented freestanding sign and seconded by committee member Carter. All in favor?
I
Opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you. And then last item on the public appearances agenda is to consider 1200 Moonross Avenue sign permit application SI 23 for two vehicle oriented freestanding signs with internal illumination. Staff have a presentation, please. Thanks.
Yes, we do. My name is Matthew Buggert, and I'm an associate planner for the City of Monterey's Planning Division. And here today to talk about 1200 Monroe Avenue for sign permit application SI 230027 for more vehicle-oriented signage. The recommendation from staff is that the ARC adopt the resolution to approve sign permit application with conditions of approval. The site is one of our VAF visitor accommodation facility hotels. The general plan designation is commercial. It's on the southern-ish side of the city along Monroe Avenue. The building here has two driveway entrances, one on the north side and one on the southern side. The proposal is for two monument signs that would generally replace existing signage at the premises. And we'll go into a little bit more detail on them on the next few slides. The sign on the northern driveway, sign 1 up here, would be 28.4 square feet. It would be generally replacing this previous sign that was there at the property. It's not necessarily a location for a wall sign, so a monument sign is being proposed here. It would be lower than the previous sign that was there. And this sign would include some internal illumination as well on the logo portion of the sign, as indicated here. And the lettering would not be lit up and would be, I believe, steel lettering on the Monterey Surf Inn portion of the sign. The other sign, sign 2 on the southern driveway, would be replacing a rather large sign that is about 11 feet tall-ish, replacing one that has a maximum height of 8 feet. And the sign would also be internally illuminated and would have halo lit lettering around the Monterey Surf Inn 1200 with a light up logo on the top. Findings for approval. The proposal achieves the purposes and objectives of the sign ordinance. It does help to identify the inn. The signs are generally consistent with, however, there is a portion that is not, and so we're going to talk about that more on the next slide. And the proposal is also consistent with the general plan in that it identifies the business. The primary inconsistency is that the 2 freestanding signs are more than what we typically recommend, which is 1 freestanding sign. And the reason being for that is that it has the 2 driveways and the locations had been used before. The northern sign is a unique planter location, and the other vehicle freestanding sign was closer to the entrance where the check-in counter is. With that, the recommendation from staff is to adopt the resolution approving the sign permit application. And again, our applicant is on the line for additional information.
All right. Macbeth, any questions for Matthew? No? All right, invite the applicant if they want to make any comments on this.
The applicant is online. I don't see their hand.
Yep, I mean, I don't really have comments. Just thank you guys again for reviewing this and your time. I don't know if you guys have any questions.
All right, thank you. All right, I'll open up for any public comment. Anyone online waiting with a hand raised, Erica?
There are no hands raised online.
Okay. Then I'll close public comment on this and open for discussion with the committee.
I'll make a motion to approve. 1200 Monroe Avenue sign permit application SI-23-0027.
I'll second.
All right, Committee Member Carter has put forward the motion to approve sign permit application SI-23-0027 for 2 vehicle-oriented freestanding signs with internal illumination at 1200 Moonross Avenue, and has been seconded by Vice Chair Tregenza. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor?
I,
Aye opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right. That closes the public appearance items. Are there any committee member comments or internal staff reports or discussion that we need to have?
Nothing to add to the planning office update.
I just want to make a comment. I didn't want to hold up that sign application, but like the general condition of some of the motels on that street is, it's awful.
Yeah.
I mean, and this particular building that we just saw the application on is, I mean, it's pretty horrendous. I'm surprised it hasn't been. I mean, there's garbage strewn, fallen down fences, and now there's like a half demolished pool. I think that's in process, but it's just, that street is like a gateway into Monterey. And I'm sort of surprised that the project hasn't even been red tagged. You know, they've got that whole garbage. Oh, it was red tagged?
Yes,
Okay.
they have applied for an architectural review permit to permit all of the remodeling that they've been doing.
Okay.
And they've submitted plans and it'll come before you.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's good to know because that place is an absolute eyesore. And
The signs are an improvement.
not if they're going
With the trash.
On the existing building, I mean. And there's I noticed like another hotel up the way has installed a bunch of like colored lights on the front of their like lanterns or something like that. It just seems to just get worse and worse and worse. So
I'm the only one that drives by it.
exactly.
It's like driving through all the muck to get
Yeah.
the chopsticks.
Yeah.
And there's more.
No, that's a valid comment. It is one of the main gateways into the city. So I agree with you on that, Justin.
And there's a wayfinding sign there to find the trolley and the aquarium and it's like, okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Anything else?
So the signs are coming before the architectural.
The work that they're doing on the building.
Yeah.
Which they've, I think, redone the stucco and they've installed some stone veneer and redoing the fence around the pool. Yeah, those things will come before you.
Okay. So we're approving the sign in advance of all that.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you. If there's nothing else, I'll adjourn the April 19th meeting of the Architecture Review Committee. Thank you, everyone.